In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read ancient tomes, the order of the Abercast. We are the brave and bold.
The Ages begins with the shocking story of Cain and Abel and the journey of violence and revenge spanning thousands of years, following Cain through his cursed life from an ancient invasion of malicious angels to the American Revolutionary War. A masterful, compelling journey through time, The Ages delves deep into arcane knowledge, myth, and legend. The art is stunning, and the story takes you on a journey where mortals, immortals, angels, and demons are all forced to deal with the folly that is God's creation. It's a beautifully dark and gritty ride through history. This 4-part story follows the astrological procession of the ages and how each 2,500-year age parallels major changes in the development of Earth's inhabitants. Cain's blasphemous struggle with the divine and sacred tyrant God will create and crumble empires, shape history, and cause a cosmic cataclysm.
I wish the day I was born would be lost forever. I wish the night they said, "It's a boy," had never happened. I wish the day had remained dark. I wish God above had forgotten that day and not let any light shine on it. I wish that bitter day had remained as dark as death, covered with the darkest clouds. I wish that the darkness had carried away that night, and it was left off the calendar and not included in any of the months. I wish that night had produced nothing, and no happy shouts had been heard. Some magicians think they can awake Leviathan, so let them say their curses and curse the day I was born. Let that day's morning star be dark. Let that night wait for that morning that never comes. I wish it had never seen the first rays of sunlight. I wish it had stopped me from being born and kept me from seeing all these troubles. Why didn't I die when I was born? Why didn't I die as I came from my mother's womb? Why did my mother hold me on her knees? Why did her breasts feed me? If I had died when I was born, I would be at peace now. I wish I were asleep at the rest. with the kings and their advisors who built palaces that are now in ruins. I wish I were buried with rulers who filled their graves with gold and silver. Why wasn't I a child who died at birth and put into the ground? I wish I had been buried like a baby who never saw the light of day. There the wicked stop causing trouble and the weary find rest. Even prisoners find relief there. They no longer hear their guards shouting at them. Everyone from their greatest to the least important will be there, and even the slave is free from his master. Why must a suffering person continue to live? Why let anyone live such a bitter life? Such people want to die, but death does not come. They search for death more than for hidden treasure. They would be happy to find their grave. They would rejoice to find their tomb, but God keeps their future a secret and builds a wall around them to protect them. When it is time to eat, all I can do is sigh with sadness, not joy. My groans pour out like water. I was afraid something terrible would happen, and what I feared most had happened. I cannot calm down or relax. I am too upset to rest. This is from the book of Job. This is his curse. We're going to talk about it in a little bit.
The Abercast. Occult. History. Conspiracy. Violence.
All right, welcome to the Abercast episode 37. You know who I am. I'm Jon Towers. Hey, I just realized something. We're 37 episodes into this, and this is going to be my first Bible story. The Kindle and paperback versions of Fiends of the Flesh are now available on Amazon. I'll put a link in the show notes if you guys are interested. I did the cover for that, and I wrote a story. It was my first prose story ever published. I'm kind of proud of it. So you can find the show notes down there. You can find the links in the show notes. I also put a link in the show notes for the new Novus release. It's called Hammer. They're a band. They're like a prog rock band, and I did their cover for them. So that was nice of those guys to include me in that. So that cover is pretty fucking heavy metal, by the way, if I have to say so myself. You support the show. I'm still struggling to fix this newsletter problem that I'm having. So there you go. But you can also, pick up any of the books or whatever that are out there. Stigmatastudios.com. Links to everything. If you like the kind of topics that we talk about on the show, then, that's what I write about. I get all this stuff from research from my books. So there's that. Hey, I just checked and I realized that I don't have any reviews on iTunes. So I know there's a lot of you out there. Why don't you do me a favor and rate me on iTunes? If you rate me on iTunes, just drop a suggestion for a topic you might want to listen to, and I might do it for you. I'll also read all reviews on the podcast. So there you go. Please help me out. It'll help me out. It will. And you don't have to buy any of my fucking comic books. Because that'll do it. So last week we had a double shot. Sorry for being a couple days late. It's actually a scheduling thing because we did a double shot last week. We did the RFK assassination on Sunday when the show normally drops. And then on Wednesday we did, we had Robert W. Sullivan IV on talking about his new book, Cinema Symbolism Part 2. So I didn't want to put a new show up on Sunday and kind of step on Robert's show. So I split the difference and I'm just going to post this show a little bit late. It should be posted up on Tuesday evening, which is right now. Yeah, like as soon as I'm done talking, I'm going to upload it. Where was I at? Was I anywhere? We're going to be talking about one of the fascinating books in the Bible today. So don't worry, I'm not going to be preaching at you. I'm actually coming at this from a pretty level-headed and point of view. So there ain't going to be no preaching here. But we are going to talk about the book of Job. There's something in the book of Job that is fascinating to me, and it actually, part of it what I think it's supposed to mean, actually appears in my latest graphic novel, The Ages. Page 1. It's fucking page 1. I like Job because of how messed up it is, and it really highlights the cruelty of God. And again, it has this thing in it that is fascinating to me, and what I think it's supposed to mean. And like I said, it's right in the book. So I might actually do something that there's going to be a lot of reading today, guys. So that 3-minute open of the curse of Job's birthday, there's going to be a little bit more reading. There's going to be lots of reading today. I actually might read from a page of the ages when it becomes relevant, because it's real type heavy. Like, you don't really need to see the picture. But whatever. Enough of this. What I want you to do right now is I want you to mix up your Jinn Jihad, and then it'll get divinely stripped from you. But don't worry, if you pass this test, you'll get 2 more in return. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about the Book of Job. All right, to tell the story of Job properly, I think that we need a little context. And when you write the kind of stories that I write, and I have written for 17 years, you can find context in the research, as I already kind of intimated. Of course, I'm talking about the wisdom literature. Those are 3 books of the Bible, which are Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job. So each of these books, they're gathered up and they're called the wisdom literature, because they all kind of are asking the same question, and they're all given wildly different answers. Proverbs tells us that there is a positive divine force or aspect of God that we can manipulate and sort of design our lives and our world with, if we have fear of the Lord and the wisdom of this force. This force is called Hakma in Hebrew. Basically, it's the force. Basically, it's the force. It binds us. It goes through us. And if we have a healthy respect of the Lord God, can I get an amen? We can use this thing, and along with this power of wisdom, to positively affect our lives and lead a good life. So and then Proverbs, obviously, after it sets all this up, it goes on to have a bunch of sayings that impart this wisdom, on how to lead a good life. So at the end, the answer that Proverbs gives us is God is wise and just. Now, Ecclesiastes, however, is a bit darker. Ecclesiastes, there's an author who's kind of interviewing or recording Ecclesiastes as he speaks, and he points out that we're all going to die eventually. No one's going to remember us. We're only around for a blink of eternity, and our lives really don't mean anything. And nothing that we do is going to eventually stand the test of time, and no one will remember our deeds. And that the good are not always rewarded, the strong don't always win battles, and the fast don't always win races. Ecclesiastes inserts into this worldview an element of chaos, and he introduces chaos into this universe where he's like, you could do everything that Proverbs says, and your life could still be fucked up. So the ecclesiastical answer is where Proverbs is God is wise and just. Ecclesiastes says, is God wise and just? I don't know. He kind of wraps up the author of the book kind of wraps up the book by going like, hey, you should give it a try, to live this positive life anyways, kind of stepping on Ecclesiastes' borderline nihilistic worldview. So, as Proverbs says, God is wise and just, and Ecclesiastes asks, is God wise and just? Then there's Job. And Job is going to find out that God is neither wise nor is he just. So, in the land of Job, he's in the land of Uz. Job is the greatest man of the East. He has 7 sons and 3 daughters. The Bible goes on to tell us that he has got 7,000 sheep, 500 oxen, 3,000 camels, and 500 she-asses. I'm like, bro, that's a lot of she-asses. He's got a huge house. And he would get up every day. He'd get up early every morning, and he'd pray and worship and offer burnt sacrifices to God. Can I get an amen? For his whole family. Meanwhile, in heaven, there are a bunch of these angels and God, and they're hanging out. And this guy, Satan, they call him, which, look, guys, is it Satan? Is it Satan? I don't know. The word in Hebrew just kind of means the adversary. It just means the one who opposes. So he's probably just another angel. It's like a task. It's not like his name is Satan. God asked this Satan character, "Hey man, where are you coming from?" And Satan answers, "I'm going back and forth from the earth, from here to the earth, and I'm walking around all over it." And God's like, "Oh, while you're down there, have you checked out my homeboy Job? He's the dopest bro on earth. He is a perfect, upright man. He fears the Lord." And Satan says, "Does he fear God for no reason? Haven't you built a wall around him and his family and all his shit? Haven't you blessed the work of his hands? I bet if you took all that shit away, he'd curse you." And God's like, "It's Vegas. Set him up, baby." And Job goes on to have the worst day of his life. This has got some really weird phraseology, and I'm just giving you a forewarning. And then there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job, and he said, "The oxen were plowing, and the asses feeding beside them, and the Sabaeans fell upon them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee." And while that dude was talking, there came also another, and he said, "The fire of God has fallen from heaven, and hath burnt up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee." While that dude was speaking, there came also another, and he said, "The Chaldeans made out 3 bands, and fell upon the camels, and have carried them away. Yea, and slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee." And while he was speaking, there also came another, and he said, "Thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house, and behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness, and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee." Sorry for that unplanned break. That reading took a lot out of me. So Job gets all this bad news. Basically everything he had just got totally taken away from him. And Job stands up. He rips his clothes off. He shaves his head. And he says, "The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. I arrived naked coming into this world, and I will leave it naked." Or some shit like that. Then Job prayed to God, and he wasn't mad at him. So, meanwhile, back in heaven, God said, "See?" And Satan replies, "Yeah, but if you took more away, like if you threatened his health, made him face his own mortality maybe, he'd curse you to your face." So God's like, "Vegas, baby, set him up again." and Job develops boils from his head to his toes. And Job's wife fucking gets into the act, and she's like, "How are you still praising this God? Like, you should curse this God." And Job says, "You speak the way other foolish women speak. We can't praise God when everything is good, and then not praise Him when shit is evil." So Job's holding fast right now to this point. And you guys have to remember, like, he didn't deserve any of this. Like, literally, it's going against kind of the message of Proverbs. He didn't deserve any of this stuff. He got up early to do burnt sacrifices and stuff. And, like, God just turned on him to win a bet. All right, so all of a sudden, Job's 3 buddies shows up. Job's got 3 friends, and they show up from the next villages or whatever. They come from 3 different places. And these guys, they come to mourn with Job for the loss of his family and all of this shit. And these guys are kind of drama queens because they rip their clothes off, and they start crying too. So while they're mourning with Job. The next day, Job starts to crack a little bit. And he writes this long curse. He curses the day he was born, which is the thing that I read at the beginning of the episode. It's this. What comes next? What comes next in the book? What comes next in the book is this long, poetic, thorough examination of any sin Job could have possibly committed. And after each of the listing and example of the sin, Job would be like, "Nope, no way, bro. I'm a righteous man." So they do things like, "Were you a hypocrite? Nope. Were you wrathful? Nope. Are you fat? Nope." He just keeps going down the line. This is most of the book is taken up with this kind of dialogue. It's very beautifully written, but it's a little tedious. So after a long time, Job eventually is like, "Fuck this," and he calls God down to personally come down and explain himself. So throughout the Old Testament, like, some people have the power to do this. You know, Moses is like, "Yo, I need to talk to you," and like God shows up and lets him see his ass. I'm sure that'll be a show for another time. So God's gonna come down. God's gonna come down and talk to Job, and they're gonna get there. They're going to do some conflict resolution. They're gonna sit down. They're going to negotiate terms or something, and everyone's going to understand everybody else's position after they do their talk. So that's going to come right after this. I got to run upstairs and get some refill. Yeah. So hang tight, and then next thing will be the conflict resolution between Job and God. Can I get an amen? All right. Okay, hold on. I didn't think this through. Okay, so God takes the form of an enormous storm cloud, and he comes down, and Job's just like, "Man, why are you messing with me?" And God tells Job all the things that he's responsible for in the universe. He says, he's like, the level of detail that commands my attention in all of creation, like, you couldn't even handle this stuff for one day. And God actually kind of like he gets like, you know, like a drunk, like, frat guy at a bar. He's like, "Do you know who the fuck I am? Do you don't want to fuck with me? Who the fuck are you?" You know, if I had like a fucking $5 for every time someone said that. Also, if I had like $5 for every time someone told me they knew kung fu, I'd be a rich guy. So God kind of gets indignant with them, and he starts to tell this story about this battle that he fought. We're gonna put this battle in a little bit more context in a minute. Let me just do the reading here. Hold on. This is from the book of Job. Shall any take him by his eyes or pierce through his nose with a snare? Canst thou draw out Leviathan with a fishhook, or press down his tongue with a cord? Canst thou put a ring into his nose, or bore his jaw through with a hook? Will he make many supplications unto thee? Or will he speak soft words unto thee? Will he make a covenant with thee? And thou shalt take him for a servant forever? Wilt thou play with him as you would a bird? Or wilt thou bind him for thy maidens? Will the bands of fishermen make a banquet of him? Will they part him amongst the merchants? Canst thou fill his skin with barbed irons, or his head with fish spears? Lay thy hand upon him. Think upon the battle. Thou wilt do some no more. Behold, the hope of him is in vain. Shall not one be cast down even at the sight of him? None is so fierce that dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand before me? Who hath given me anything beforehand that I should repay him? Whatsoever is under the whole heaven is mine. Would I keep silence concerning his boastings, or his proud talk, or his fair array of words? Who can uncover the face of his garment? Who shall come within his double girdle? Who can open the doors of his face? Round his teeth is terror, his scales are his pride, shut up together as with a close seal. No one is so near to another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another, and they stick so that they cannot be sundered. His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning torches, and sparks of fire leap forth. Out of his nostrils goeth smoke, and out as out of a seething pot and burning rushes. His breath kindleth coals, his flame goeth out of his mouth, and his neck abideth strength, and dismay danceth before him. The flakes of his flesh are joined together, and they are firm upon him. They cannot be moved. His heart is as firm as stone, yea, firm as the neither millstone. When he raiseth himself up, the mighty are afraid. By reason of despair they are beside themselves. If one lay at him with a sword, it will not hold, nor spear, nor dart, nor pointed shaft. He esteemeth iron straw and brass as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make him flee. Sling stones are turned with him unto stubble. Clubs are accounted as stubble. He laugheth at the rattling of the javelin. Sharpest pot shards under him. He spreadeth a threshing sledge upon the mire. He maketh the deep to boil like a pot. He maketh the sea like a seething mixture. He maketh the path to shine upon him. One would think the deep to be hoary. Upon earth there is not his like. Who is made to be fearless? He looketh upon high things. He is king over all the proud beasts. So, if you couldn't keep up with me, what God is saying basically is, this is the craziest fucking thing I ever built. And this shit is bananas, and it's unbeatable, and I beat it. So who the fuck are you again? Now, this is a thing that you see. I'm going to decompress for just a second. This is kind of a thing that you see, like with these ancient myths. We talked about, it's this thing, this sky god defeating a serpent or a dragon to build the world, or to build a component of the world. Like Thor, we talk about Thor, who's the god of thunder, obviously, battling the Midgard serpent. he didn't build anything with them, but that wasn't a creation myth. That was that's an end of the world kind of myth. But Marduk and Tiamat from Samaria, Mesopotamia. Marduk killed Tiamat, who's his mother, who was a giant multi-headed dragon, and he built the sky with her corpse. You tell me that's not heavy metal, bro? I'm gonna kill my mom and build the sky with her corpse? That shit is rough. So there's some biblical scholars I've heard that talk about this passage in Job where God's recounting this battle that he had with obviously he respects this monster that he built. And he says or they say that this was like something that this is a vestigial relic that's still sticking around after something got cut out of the Bible. And they point to this Marduk and Tiamat story saying, like, look, this is just an echo of this thing. But since it's not recounted in Genesis or this battle or any other place, it's just like this thing that's just hanging around. It's like when you see something in a movie that you're like, I think that means something, but you don't know what it means because it got cut. Like the other relevant piece got cut to it. It's just this thing that's hanging around that they forgot to take out or they couldn't take out. They couldn't take this out because it was so heavy metal, son. So in the ages, I'm not going to try to promote so much. I clean up this description a little bit, and the way that I cast it is like, I make this into basically like it's the first conflict in the world. It's the first conflict in the world, and it's actually a giant monster conflict. It's actually a giant monster. It's like the first Kaiju fight, son. So when you open up the ages, there it is. You get to see the Leviathan. You get to see naked God and his butt. And I know God's got a butt because in Exodus, Moses looks at it. I think I already mentioned that. All right, here we go. It was the dawn of the Lionian age, this new world still on the edge of chaos. As it rumbled and settled into place, the oceans raged and the sky was on fire. The creator god, Yaldabaoth, faced the first of his sacred mistakes. Somewhere during the works of creation, maybe the divine mathematics, the careful design, or the conjuring, summoning, and molding of matter itself. The willing of gravity. Somewhere in the celestial process of creation, there was a miscalculation. God hadn't yet created life, however, it stood colossal in swirling, primordial, raging ocean, looking at an impossible, defiant, living beast. The creature lurched out of the sea, titanic and angry, scales like battle-scarred shields, interlocking down its back. Sulfur, smoke, and flame pouring from its mouth and its nostrils, and its many eyes black as the recently forgotten dammnable void. Long tentacles and spiny fins twitching, flashing, and flailing. Sharp barbs and hooks, and a massive beak that was as sharp and fast as lightning, its massive body glistening in the waters of these new oceans. The living beast called Leviathan stands, facing Yaldabaoth. Until that moment, the creator god, Yaldabaoth, had only ever felt the emotions of loneliness and fear. There are the emotions, in fact, that drove him to his work to create this world. This work made him feel great pride. However, beholding this beast Leviathan, in that blasted moment, the creator god felt utter terror. Maybe this terrifying creature was left over from what was before. Yaldabaoth awoke and began his work. Beholding Leviathan's lifeless black eyes and titanic warlike body slicked with mucus and slime, God then felt disgust, and that disgust turned into hatred. Divine hatred. Bathed in the black light of the strange eclipse, the two titanic creatures moved towards each other. Smoke and fire poured forth from Leviathan's beak as he screeched and hissed, and the creator god, Yaldabaoth, yelling, running forward, knee-deep in the swirling new sea, moving towards the impossible beast, cosmic cosmically massive, rippling muscles grabbed at Leviathan, and the slimy, hooked, barbed tentacles entangled and embraced God as this cosmic battle had been joined, and there was no one to witness it. It would soon be the age of Cancer, the time of men and angels, and then Gemini, the age of the brothers. So that's kind of my I got the chillies. That's kind of my retelling of this long passage from Job, where he's talking about his battle with Leviathan. This is kind of like from a professional wrestling kaiju Godzilla point of view. But there's some fun stuff in there, for sure. So after God tells this story, he chills out a little bit. And he sort of bitches at these three guys. That are with Job. And he like, go back home to your villages or whatever. And then, God, man. So before I move on, I'm just talking about this. I'm thinking about this battle. And I love Godzilla, dude. I love Godzilla. I actually, and a lot of you guys probably don't know this, in like 1998 or something, they Americans made a Godzilla movie with Ferris Bueller's Day Off in it. It was awful. It was terrible. But one of the biggest slights one of the biggest slights against it was Puff Daddy did the song. He did like the soundtrack song for it. And in that soundtrack song, he sampled Led Zeppelin's Kashmir, that the guitar riff, the dan-in-it, 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 dan-in-it. And then it was like he sampled that, so it was like dan-in-it, dan-in-it, yeah, son, dan-in-it, dan-in-it, yeah, boy. He had this whole song. It was unlistenable. It was awful. It's shitting on my Godzilla, and it's also shitting on Led Zeppelin's Kashmir. So I took that shit personally, man. And in 2001, strike that, 2002, I found myself in New Orleans doing security for the 2001 Super Bowl. So because of 9/11, they pushed the whole NFL season back a week, 2 weeks maybe, a week or something like that. So that put us there. I was there for, I think, 3 weeks. So that put us there, like right during Mardi Gras. Usually Super Bowl is like the first week or the last week of January, but it pushed us back to whenever Mardi Gras is. So like we were there having a great time or whatever. But I remember like standing outside of the media center, which was like probably 5 or 6 blocks away from the Kingdom. I smoked a pack of cigarettes a day back then. I was a younger man, and I was out there smoking a cigarette, and I was in my like security supervisor get up and all this. I'm just out there smoking a cigarette, and up pulls this like Escalade or something, some kind of big whatever. And it rolls the window, and Puff Daddy's in there. This is the day before. This is Super Bowl Saturday. It was the day before Super Bowl. So I'm looking at him, and I'm like, I recognize him. I know who this fucking guy is. But what's he want? So I'm like, yeah, yes sir, whatever. And he was like, how do I get to the Kingdom? And I'm like, how do you get to the Kingdom? And he's like, yeah, like I'm supposed to be there because they do like mic checks and practices and stuff. Like all like the whole thing is like crazy. And also, I don't know, like whatever. So, but I like look cartoonishly. I turn my head and I look at it, and you could see this thing, like it's right there. Like I said, it's like 5 or 6 blocks away from where the media center was. And I look back at him, and I'm like, the Kingdom? And he's like, yeah. How do you get there? So I look back, and I'm like, man, it's like right, there. But I thought about Godzilla and I thought about that goddamn song, and I thought about him stealing Jimmy Page's, and I know he didn't steal it. I'm sure he paid for it. Jimmy Page was in the fucking video. I know, but it still rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. So I was like, okay, what you got to do is you got to go down here. You got to take that right, get back on the highway, go down three exits. And I gave him some bullshit fucking thing. And he was like, all right, man, thanks. And he took off and he followed my fucking directions. He was looking at it while he was turning onto the exit. And I'm like, what? Anyhow, if any of you guys know Puff Daddy, ask him about it. He might tell you. He might tell you what happened. I wish I could have been like, that was for Godzilla, fool. All right, so God chills out a little bit. And he tells the three stooges, he was like, all right, everybody's cool. You guys should have had more faith in our boy here, Job. But everything's going to be okay. You guys go back to your villages or whatever. And then eventually, throughout the years following, Job eventually gets 7 new sons and 3 new daughters. And he gets twice as many oxes and she-asses and camels as he had before this whole thing happened. So there's a couple of different ways we can look at this thing. Ultimately, you either get that God's a big jerk putting his follower through all this torture just to win a bet, or it's not even a bet. They didn't even have really any stakes. I said Vegas, baby, because I thought it was funny, but it's not like they were like, I betcha. It's just this guy just being like, hey, man, I bet you this guy will fold if you fuck with him. And he's like, no, he won't. Do it. So it's like, what's the point of all this? And why did he get all of his shit back times 2? If the point of the story was that it's not a reward in the first place, as Proverbs would tell you, then why does he get twice the amount of shit back when he's as a reward? Was it a gift? I don't know. That's the part that fucks with me. I mean, that's one of the parts that fucks with me. I gotta do an episode on Abraham and Isaac. We'll get to what fucks with me. There's this idea that it's this idea because he like spends a lot of time talking about all the shit that he's got to deal with to make the fucking world rotate and exist. There's this idea that he selectively sees us as ants. However, he still wants us to worship him all the time, even though he's too busy with everything else. Like we gotta. He's like, yeah, whatever. I step on you and I don't care. It doesn't matter as long as you're like burning dead cows to me or whatever. This is something else that I get into in the first chapter of the Ages book. Or it's like he's fishing for a compliment. You guys know these people that are like, I'm so fat. I'm never gonna find a boyfriend on Facebook. So you got to be like, no, you're hot. Everything's gonna be okay. You'll find the right one eventually. When really you're just like, I hate this. So God's just like fishing for a compliment, pun intended. He's just like, yo, bro, I got all this stuff going on. Besides, could you fight Leviathan? Could you fucking do that? No, I couldn't do that. You're right. You're God. I shouldn't have questioned you. Or he's just a giant show off. He's just waiting to get pissed so he can just walk into your house and be like, yo, could you beat this fish creature? Could you have fucking done this? Could you have stuck a spear into his nose? Can you have fucking hooked him on the side and fucking suplexed him in the water? No, I don't think you could have. And Job's like, yeah, you're right, I couldn't have. I'm a shitheel. So, taken with all this wisdom literature, if the question is God fair and just? I think the answer is obvious at this point. But I'll leave it up to you. I'll leave it up to you. 100%. So, let me tell you about my first graphic novel, The Heart of Abracax. Abracax. This is actually where the title of the podcast comes from. Demons and archangels try to lay claim to the most powerful weapon in creation. It just happens to be hidden inside the self-loathing mind of Johnny Axe. He gets twisted up in his own personal Armageddon. Something even more terrible gets unleashed, the evil heart of Abracax. While Axe tries to survive the holy war raging around him, he must face the pain of his past, his hatred, and his one true love. You go to stigmatastudios.com. I think there's still some copies floating around on Amazon for this bad boy. But with everything, you go to stigmatastudios.com, click the comic link, and you'll find the relevant links. All right, so thanks for tuning in, everybody. I apologize. This episode seems like it's sort of late. However, I'm sure you guys can understand that I didn't want to step on Robert Sullivan's episode too much. He was a great guest, and I was happy to have him. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for accepting my day late and a dollar short attitude. Remember to support the show. I really would love some rates and some reviews. I'd rather some reviews than rates, but whatever. You could do both of them right there on iTunes. From what I understand, most of you are listening through iTunes, so it would help out a lot to get the word out. Also, if you're a weird person that likes this show, you like to jump between history and Bible heresy and whatever else the fuck we talk about, then chances are you probably know someone else that might like it as well. Teach them how to use a podcast machine. Teach them how to do it. Introduce them to the show. Share it on your social media if something strikes you the right way. But any support, even listening, makes me feel good. So if you want to do a little bit more than that, then rate, review, sign up for the newsletter, buy some goddamn comic books.
Vienna, 1683. Today is September 11th, 1683. The mighty army of the Ottoman Empire, led by the savage and radical terror troops of the Dar al-Harb, surround the walled city of Vienna and begin a siege to break the golden apple of Europe and kill, enslave, or convert all of its inhabitants. The valiant citizens stand against the tyrannical army with the steadfast leadership of Count Ernst Rudiger von Stromberg, the help of the ever-living rebel Cyrus the Dead Guy, and the hopes of the faraway King Jan Sobieski III and his army of flying hussars. The Vienna 1683 comic is available right now from Stigmata Studios at stigmatastudios.com and on indieplanet.us. The Non-Standard Squad, 1944. World War II. 3 weird American soldiers are on a search and rescue mission into the oldest and darkest regions of Europe. A cursed, ever-living warrior, Cyrus the Dead Guy. An experimental warbot, Sergeant Lane McCord. An all-red axe, mysterious rogue with a demon-possessed arm come face to face with an army of magically corrupted machine-obsessed elves, a magic hammer-wielding Norse Ubermensch, and a Nazi wizard who is a member of the ancient Dark Order of the Shining Hexagon. The Non-Standard Squad 1944 comic is available right now from Stigmata Studios at stigmatastudios.com and on indieplanet.us.
Whatever. The newsletter eventually, I swear it'll happen. I will get it up and running. It's just writing, and recording podcasts and stuff. It takes up a ton of time. Writing, drawing, writing. So it's like something's got to take the back burner. Unfortunately, it's a newsletter, but when it pops off, it's going to be fantastic. So thank you guys. Facebook, Stigmata Studios. You can find the Abercast on an Abercast page on Facebook. Try there. I do try to post some videos and stuff that are pertinent to the episodes. And I found these Bible Thumper guys did a couple really cool animated episodes explaining their way to interpret these the wisdom literature. So I'll probably throw them on there if you guys want to see some more. It's beautiful animation and stuff. They do a really good job. It's just that they're a little bit on the Bible thumpy side, but it's not too much in your face, so you might like it. I don't know. So thank you guys for putting up with all my reading and stuff today. It's just this stuff is like in this book is so poetic and everything. I didn't want to jibber jabber like I mostly do through some of this stuff. I want to take the time and try to get it to you the right way. So there it is. It's still early, so the show's going to go on tonight, this evening, everybody. And I just want to say thank you guys so much. I love every single one of you, not in a weird way, just in a, come on, let's get to know each other kind of way. Let me know what you like about the show. I tell you how to find me all the time. Facebook, you go to Twitter at JONNYAXX, or, yeah, that's the best way to do it. If you guys are doing Twitter at Sigmata Studios, and you're like, yeah, that's probably not the best way to do it. Fuck, man. I need to get a goddamned email address up. Falling apart, everybody. Hey, but give me a hand. Pass the show around. Share it. Get some clips. Tell people what you like, what you don't like. Get some of your friends involved in this nonsense. Rate and review. I'll read your review online or on the show. And all that. All that good stuff. All right, enough of this, man. Just go have a good time. Write something. Draw something. Do it. Do it, fool, and do it weird. Do it and do it weird. That's going to be my new thing. I'm just blabbling. What do I got to do? What do I got to do to get out of this? I'm going to loop. I'm going to time loop. Time loop. Ba-na-na, da-na-na-na-na. Ba-na-na. It was the dawn of the Ionian Age. This new world still on the edge of chaos as it rumbled and settled into place. The oceans raged and the sky was on fire. The creator god Yaldabaoth faced the first of his sacred mistakes. Somewhere during the work of creation, maybe the divine mathematics, the careful design, or the conjuring, summoning, and molding of matter itself, the willing of gravity, somewhere in the celestial process of creation, there was a miscalculation. God hadn't yet created life. However, he stood colossal in swirling, primordial, raging ocean, looking at an impossible, defiant, living beast. The creature lurched out of the sea, titanic and angry, scales like battle-scarred shields, interlocked down its speck, sulfur, smoke, and flame pouring from its mouth and nostrils, its many eyes black as the recently forgotten damnable void, long tentacles and spiny fins twitching, lashing, and flailing, sharp barbs and hooks, and a massive beak that was as sharp and fast as lightning. Its massive body glistening with the waters of these new oceans. the living beast called Leviathan standing facing Yaldabaoth. Until that moment, the creator god Yaldabaoth had only ever felt the emotions of loneliness and fear. These were the emotions, in fact, that drove him to work to create this world. This work made him feel great pride. However, beholding this beast, the Leviathan, in that blasted moment, the creator god felt utter terror. Maybe this terrifying creature was left over from what was before Yaldabaoth awoke and began his work. Beholding Leviathan's lifeless black eyes and titanic warlike body slicked with mucus and slime, God then felt disgust, and that turned into hatred. Divine hatred. Bathed in the black light of this strange eclipse, the two titanic creatures moved towards each other. Smoke and fire poured from Leviathan's beak as he screeched and hissed at the creator god. Yaldabaoth yelling, running forward knee-deep in this swirling new sea, moving towards the impossible blast. Cosmically massive, rippling muscles grabbed at Leviathan, and slimy hooked barbed tentacles embraced the god as this cosmic battle had been joined. And there was no one to witness it. It would soon be the age of Cancer, and time of men and angels, and then the age of Gemini, the age of brothers.